Hey everyone, the Diablo team just did their first Campfire Chat, which was a stream where they had the community manager and some of the directors of the game. They had them gathered and they just talked about the state of the game and some of the concerns and feedback that they've gotten. And I think it was really good. So I wanted to quickly go over some of my notes here, and then talk about my takeaways from that stream. So they're making some awesome changes to Nightmare Dungeons. XP is going to be buffed. That's going to happen the next couple of weeks. And using a sigil will create a teleport point at the dungeon entrance. So that's huge for getting between um, dungeons. So you can do a dungeon, find a sigil in that dungeon, use that next sigil, teleport to the next dungeon. It's going to cut down on your travel time between. So this is trying to facilitate you being in nightmare dungeons more so than just running normal dungeons over and over again. Um, Season one is going to come in mid to late July, so 4 to 6 weeks ish. Seasons are going to be quarterly. They're going to have new mechanics and balancing, as well as just they're going to be constantly fixing and updating things. There was some confusion about what Renown was going to look like for seasonal content, so we'll look forward to some clarification on that going forward. Some simple bugs that people have been worried about. The Blight Corpse explosion on Necro, where it creates like that big black pool. They're going to fix that at some point. The Druid loot table, including barb items, is going to be fixed before season one. And then they had some other things they brought up, like they're thinking about moving gems from your inventory into your materials tab, and then working from there rather than them taking up space in your inventory. They're going to increase the caps on materials like veiled crystals, crushed animal bones, or whatever, all that stuff. There, there's some discussion about it, they're going to implement some kind of disconnect protection for hardcore players. Um, so that's kind of interesting. It's like if you get disconnected, it will automatically use your scroll of safety to take you back to safety before your character just dies in the overworld. Interesting. I'll be interested to see how that ends up working out. Um, there's been an issue where defeating a world boss, sometimes they're like level 90, and when you beat them, the cache that it drops requires a higher level than your character level, so you can't open it. They confirm that's a bug, and they're going to be fixing that before season one. They talked about some social features, looking for group. They said they're going to be looking into that, and that will be developing as the game goes forward. No time frame on that. They're pushing out patches to help with stability and performance issues on PC, so look out for that. If you still encounter issues, they said use the forums, report the issues, and be detailed on specifications of your PC and the settings you're using in game. They also talked about how there's lots of buffs and lots of changes coming down the pike. Um, and they addressed mob density. I know that's a very hot button issue in the community right now. We all want to see more monsters to kill. They said they're not going to increase mob density at the moment, but they are increasing XP in the Nightmare dungeons to help with the XP issue. So hopefully that gets ironed out a little bit. My takeaways, number one, they're hearing us. It sounds like they might not be fully understanding us in all cases, but they are hearing the things that we're saying. There's been a lot of talk about density. There's been a lot of talk about XP and gems and all these things, and it sounds like they're hearing what we're saying. We may need to be a little bit more clear on some things. They brought up level scaling, and then they started talking about like item level requirements. I think there was some confusion there, so maybe we need to be clear and explicit in our requests and recommendations, just to help with things moving along. And two, there's a lot coming down the pike. A lot of stuff is coming. The game is going to get better over time. It's already great, so to me, that's great news. Um, the third thing that was a takeaway for me was a little bit more on the negative side. Got me thinking. One of the directors said something that got me thinking and has me almost a little bit concerned. I clipped it and I have it here. I downloaded it, so let's go ahead and just watch this 30-second clip, and then I want to talk about my thoughts on it. So here, this is something that he mentioned when they were talking about implementing quality of life changes going forward into the game.
And I've had some comments on Twitter where people are like, well, D3 has this thing and D4 doesn't have this thing. And I'm like, well, D3 has been out there for 10 years, iterating and improving, and like D4 has been out there for 10 days. And so, like, that doesn't mean it's not going to show up. It doesn't mean the iteration and evolution of these things aren't going to continue. Like, we're going to keep evolving the game, as fast as we can, and as safely as we can through seasons and hot fixes and patches and expansions. So, um,
Okay. So there's a couple of points here. It is good that they're going to be making positive quality of life changes going forward. Things like, I mean, they talked about this, but I don't know if they confirmed that they're going to be adding these things like searching features in the stash and things like that. Um, but the part of that clip, that statement that has me a little concerned is he said, there's people on Twitter saying like, oh, D3, Diablo 3 has this thing and Diablo 4 doesn't. And then he says, oh, well, D3's been out for 10 years and it's been iterating and improving and stuff, and D4 hasn't yet. And that got me thinking, I was like, well, you guys made D3. You guys are the ones that are making those improvements to D3. You guys are the ones that implemented those quality of life changes over the last 10 years. So in my mind, it's like, so why didn't you then take all those lessons you learned from Diablo 3 and bring them to Diablo 4? Like, all that stuff, in my mind, should have been in the game from the beginning, like search in the stash. I mean, that's a pretty basic feature that's in D3 that all of these people play D3. They've used that feature, and it's just not in D4. And now it's like, oh, well, we're looking at 2 seasons ahead for our timeline. So if we want to start working on a search function for the stash, it's going to be probably, you know, 4 or 5 months before that even gets into the game. And like, that's good. It's good that they're willing to work on that stuff. But in my mind, it's like there's a lot of things that this game should have that older games that they made do have, but it's just not there. And so that's what has me a little bit concerned is that they have a mindset of like we're going to continually improve things over time, which is great. I hope the game does get better over time. They add all these things, but that also comes with the issue of, well, some of that stuff should have been in the product from the beginning. Um, this wouldn't concern me as much if the game were like cheaper or easier to get into, but you know, it's $70, which is apparently the new video game standard. And them taking this mindset about these features to me is kind of like admitting that this product was not complete. It wasn't polished enough when we released it, so we're just going to add more stuff to it over time. Which like it would be different if it was like, "Oh, that's a good idea that we didn't think of. Let's add that." Or, "Oh, PoE has this thing," or, Torchlight has this thing. Let's add that in. It's not adding, it's just putting features in that should have been there in the first place, if that makes any sense. So it's kind of where I have a little bit of concerns about. I mean, we all know how D3 went. It was rough at launch, and then it took like 10 years for it to become the game that it is now that people actually enjoy. And it didn't take that whole time, but you know what I'm saying? Like it took years for them to make it into a game that people love. I don't want that to happen to D4. D4 has a much better start. It's starting off at a great place. And so I hope that they can quickly get things like a search function in the stash, more stash space, figure out the gem stuff, um, all the things that people are asking for that should be in the game. I hope that stuff gets in quickly, and then we can move forward with new and more exciting features rather than, oh, hey, it's been 6 months playing D4, and now, hooray, I'm finally excited to announce that this thing that you all wanted since, the open beta 8 months ago, it's finally in there, right? So that's my concern. Overall, I think the whole thing was great. It was really positive. Um, they are listening. They're willing to include changes. So let's keep a list of things that you want to see in the game and post it in the forums, post it on Reddit, wherever they have people looking. And hopefully, the things that you want will get traction and make its way into the game. So anyway, just thought I'd share my thoughts on that. Um, Take care.